talk a little bit about this. The problems people do have is misunderstanding healing. The most common thing is associating healing and miracles as being the exact same thing. That's a common thing. So if healing is going to happen, it's going to be instantaneous in our mind. If healing is going to happen, we're going to really feel supercharged. We have all these expectations and anticipations of how it's going to work. And the problem is it doesn't often work the way we think, so we write off healing as something that is not happening or something we can't appropriate or we can't experience. And here, before we go too much further in this, I want to try to clarify some issues about healing, a little more the meaning of it. While I believe strongly in miracles, I believe it's valuable to distinguish somewhat healing and miracles, at least for the sake of discussion and for understanding what we need to practice. What is healing? Before I get into defining healing and miracles, healing, in my own definition, is a restoration of the normalcy of creation. In other words, it's making God's created order back to normal. Now, my classic question I have is, what does normal feel like? Those of you that feel real well, take a deep breath in. I'm not talking about the sick, but those that feel normal. What does that feel like? Does it feel unusual? Do you feel like a supercharged person? No, it feels normal. Normal feels normal. The problem with healing is that we keep expecting healing to feel abnormal, to feel supercharged. When healing comes, we expect always for there to be this high anointing or these goosebumps or our arm is like on fire or electric. I mean, that happens sometimes. But if our goal is to get things back to normal, what does normal feel like? Normal feels like nothing. Normal, you don't even think about it. And so, as we're going to pray for healing, we got to get some right ideas about this. I mean, people are waiting for that supercharged moment. They're waiting to be overwhelmed, if you will, by the presence of God. And I hope that happens. But the problem is, if it doesn't, are you now going to say, well, I can't be healed? Or are you waiting for that moment? You're waiting for the electricity from heaven just to begin to just come all over you? I mean, like I said, that's great. But I believe healing is about restoring normalcy, making things work average, plain, regular. I know you know this, but let's get this in our head a little bit. So when God begins to maybe bring healing, rather than feeling something real extreme, we may feel nothing. Do you hear my point? Why are we waiting for this really strange, heightened feeling? It's not necessary in every case. It may, in fact, be just very plain and normal. That's one little point I wanted to get at. But getting back to this idea of healing and miracles being different, in the area of miracles, I believe we are going to feel something. It is heightened. It is glorious. But in the Bible, we do have at least one indication that healing and miracles are separate. And you know what I'm going to refer to. In 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 7 through 9, Paul is listing the gifts of the Spirit. You're very familiar with the passage. And he says, to each one, the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good. To one, there is given through the Spirit. And he goes to list them down. You're familiar with this. But he says, to one, there's given gifts of healing. To another, miraculous powers. What's my point? Paul understood gifts of healings and the gift of miracles to be two separate things. Healing and miracles are not the exact same thing. Some of you may say, well, what is it, JD? Help me understand. Well, I understand healing to be God working within nature in some sense, speeding up nature, speeding up healing processes, speeding up perhaps within the realm of the actual matter and physical stature of what is there. Whereas a miracle is God moving against nature, superseding nature, and it's supernatural, other than natural. It's like God working outside of nature. It's God regrowing a limb. That's God doing things of that nature, which again, I want to be clear, I believe in that. But they're two separate things in my own understanding and according to what we see in Paul's list. What's my point? We keep looking for healings to be miracles, and because of that, we don't really see with the right kind of eyes. We don't see the gradual process that God might begin to do within the natural order. We don't see the lessening of pain that just was there a little bit because we're waiting for that explosion, that instantaneous feeling. We're waiting for that moment to fall from the sky that's so overwhelming and so obvious that everybody sees it. Again, that's miracle talk, which is good, but we're talking healing today. Is this okay? So as we begin to pray, as we begin to try to think in terms of a healing workshop, we need to start looking with the right kind of eyes. If healing is God moving and like speeding up, what's going on inside us, speeding up the healing processes or something, He might be beginning small. He might be dealing with the root cause, and we're focusing on the result of that root cause. The result of the root cause of some disease may still be there while God is beginning to dry up the root of it. Again, we want a miracle. We want everything to dry up overnight. Whereas God may strike the root cause, and it's now going to slowly process into a healing manifestation in its outer expression. But again, we're not happy. If we don't see it all at once, if it can't be instantaneous, then we're done. We're cursing God. Well, I knew this wasn't real after all. You hear what I'm trying to say? So as we begin to talk about praying for healing, we need to be looking with the right eyes. We need to understand that healing does work as a process at times. It's something that isn't necessarily instantaneous. I'm glad if it would be. In my own experience of praying for people, I've never, ever seen anybody healed instantaneously. I know some of you may have. I never have. It's always been a process on some level. And it's always required them to be involved on some level, which we're getting there here in just a minute.